What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the new Jennifer Lawrence film, Red Sparrow. Red Sparrow stars Jennifer Lawrence, Joel Edgerton, and Jeremy Irons. It is directed by Francis Lawrence and tells the story of a Russian ballerina who, after her career is cut dramatically short, she is more or less forced into this secret organization in the Russian government known as Sparrows, where she is forced to do spy work for the Russian government against specifically this one United States CIA agent. But as with all spy stories, there's a lot of twists and turns and things happen that no one expects to happen, and her story begins to feel like no one really has control of where it's going, including her. Now I'm gonna level with you guys. When I saw that a Jennifer Lawrence lead performance was being put out in March, I didn't have a lot of faith in this film, because movies that are put out beginning of the year are normally films that are either gambles or they're movies that are low budget, simple films that they just put out to make a quick little profit for their company. So knowing Jennifer Lawrence was in this movie, this wasn't a cheap film to make. So I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out. And I have to say, this movie is definitely better than I expected it to be. The plot is somewhat relevant to the modern era, being as America and Russia are sort of in this sort of pseudo-Cold War even to this day, and I felt that that worked really well. The story does have some fun twists and turns. It has some in-depth aspects about certain characters that definitely made them more interesting than if they would have just been a very bland sort of caricature of that character, and I think that a lot of those things in the script worked well. The performances are good. Obviously, Jennifer Lawrence continues to impress everyone, I feel, with her skills on screen for how young she is. She's already an Oscar winner, a two-time nominee, and I think that she will just continue to become a better and better actress as time goes on. And it was good to see her in a role that's sort of different than anything else she's done up to this point. That being said, the rest of the cast did a really solid job as well. I'm personally a big fan of Joel Edgerton, and I really enjoyed him in this role, and I think everyone else was definitely serviceable in the roles they had. And then honestly, as a spy film, it worked really well. It had that aspect of every little detail matters, and that's something that every spy film always has. There's always something that happens at some point in that film that you just sort of brushed off as just being like, nah, that doesn't really matter that much, but then it always comes back. This film has a ton of those tiny little moments where you think that that tiny moment doesn't matter at all, but in reality that moment is so important in the grand scheme of the story, and I love it when films are able to swerve the audience like that. Some of this movie is predictable, I won't say that it isn't, but the big aspects of this film are where it will surprise you. Production-wise, the film is well directed, it has great costumes, I think set-wise it was really well. Whatever locations they used looked amazing and were very fitting for the story being told. And that was a big thing that also surprised me about this film, was that I was sort of expecting it to not really fulfill that aspect of this. Being as it is supposed to take place in all these different foreign places, I didn't know how well they would be able to portray that, and surprisingly they did it very well throughout the whole film. They travel to multiple countries all around the world in this film, and none of them feel like they're just shooting on a soundstage. This film is not perfect though, as rarely there are films that are. And one of the small things, I'll start with one of the little things that bugged me. Jennifer Lawrence's Russian accent in this film, while it's pretty decent through most of the movie, there are scenes where it breaks. And that is something that just happens sometimes. But there are a couple scenes where it breaks entirely, and she just sounds like Jennifer Lawrence. However, Jennifer Lawrence is passable in this film, but Jeremy Irons is not. Jeremy Irons just sounds like Jeremy Irons doing an American accent who's sort of subtly doing a Russian accent. It's barely there. It's consistent, I'll give him that, but he's supposed to be this like full-blooded Russian dude in this film, and he really does not sound like that. The script of this film also really failed to build any suspense for me. The few sequences that I know were supposed to be the humongously suspenseful climactic sequences in the film really just sort of existed. They didn't really pull me in. I wasn't too worried. I didn't really care that much about any of the characters that deeply to where I was super invested in these scenes that were supposed to thrill me and really sell me on this film, which is definitely an issue, and I think part of that goes into the fact that this film doesn't have a lot of action. The reason when you watch a James Bond film that you're so excited by the action and the thrills of James Bond is because you have seen him in peril consistently. This film is much more under the radar in its action. It's supposed to be a more subtle thrill where it's like, you know the threat exists, you just don't know what it is. But the thing is for the scenes where there is a real threat, it's hard to have those thrills when there's never been a real physical threat before in the film. And I think this movie would have benefited from even adding just like one or two more, not like massive set piece action movie scenes. I don't need something that crazy. Subtle one-on-one hand-to-hand combat or something, just anything else, because the few action sequences there are, while they're decent and they're filmed well, the thrills aren't there and the suspense isn't there, and it's because I'm not worried about any of these characters because I've never, like, while I've learned about them and learned to care a little bit, they've never been in a situation that I was genuinely worried for their safety enough that I was like, oh wow, I'm realizing how much I care about this character, because every scene they were in I was just like, oh yeah, that seems like that's how that would go down. And then it just happens. I'm not like, oh no, like what's going to happen to Jennifer Lawrence? What's going to happen to Joel Edgerton? And I really think that the action is a big issue with why the film suffered in terms of the thrills and suspense. I'm going to give Red Sparrow a C. This movie was better than I expected it to be. It's still kind of just like a subpar action thriller spy film, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think that if you're a big fan of Jennifer Lawrence or Joel Edgerton, go check this movie out. You'll have like a good enough time with it. It's just not really going to blow you away. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this review, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of Red Sparrow, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and hope to see you guys later.